And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to this week's It's Time to Excel, where we ignite and we inspire the possibilities that are all around us. And today I'm so honored to have Lindsey Reedy with us here. We have met at a networking group and we have just connected. And what I have found is she's got some really cool things to share. And she helps startup businesses, and that's always a good thing because one of the biggest challenges I think with startups is these lovely contracts and this legal ease and this legal whatever it is, because most of us can't read it. We don't even know what we need. And
Absolutely.
that's what you specialize in. So, Lindsey, I want to thank you so much for being here and just joining me today. And you're going to help us educate the audience and kind of learn how can we, or what things do we need to put in place? What are some of the myths maybe that are out there, or some of the things we should be considering that us folks don't even have a clue on? And
Absolutely.
so why don't you go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself and kind of share a little bit about your background and then jump into some things and some tips and we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, for just to reiterate, my name is Lindsey Reedy. I currently serve as a startup and business attorney at Hill Law, located in Raleigh, North Carolina, but
Mhm.
serving businesses across our state. So we help businesses with everything from helping you start up your company to growing your company, protecting your company, and eventually helping you implement your exit strategy. So,
Ah, yeah,
yes.
that would be the ultimate goal. We don't think that far ahead, most of us.
Right. Well, that is something that is interesting, and every entrepreneur is different. Some
Hmm.
entrepreneurs want to build a business to where they can sell it and be done with it, hands off.
Hmm.
You have some entrepreneurs who want to grow their business and eventually pass it on to their children. So we're thinking long term here. When you sit down with that for original or an initial consult, we're going to sit through and talk about what are your goals for the business? What do you ultimately want to do with it? And actually, pertaining to what we're talking about today, we think all this through on how we're going to implement them into the documents that we create for you.
And those are so important. And they absolutely, even as we're doing connecting, I mean, I do a lot of coaching and consulting, and I have to make sure I have those documents in place and make sure everything is as clear as possible. And that was, I think, one of the biggest challenges is where do you even start? What do you even begin with? What is acceptable? How much do I have to have? Does it have to be 100 pages or can it be one or can it be somewhere in between? Those are some of the things that I know I've talked to other fellow small business owners and we're just clueless.
Well, and it's not as an entrepreneur, your job is to offer the products and the services that
Hmm.
you're providing. Your job is not to focus on what happens if something goes wrong or,
Okay.
how is that provision in a contract going to be understood if it goes to litigation. That's not your job. That's why you hire an attorney because we're thinking all this through. We can look at
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
provision in a contract and tell you, hey, this might actually cause you some issues if you're sued. So that's kind of the benefit of bringing on an attorney is you can focus on what you're good at, and we can help protect your business.
And that is so important. And I think that's one of the things as we talk about we can't do it all. As entrepreneurs, we have all the hats. We have to wear all the hats. That's part of the deal. And but yet there are certain things, and I talk a lot about, the accounting and the bookkeeping. Sometimes that's one of the first things right along with business attorney that those are the first things you really gotta partner yourself with people you can trust and to help
Absolutely.
you to make those decisions because that's their expertise. It's not necessarily ours for the most part. I know for me it was not. I mean, I'm good with numbers. I love my numbers. That's great. Give me a spreadsheet any day and I'm happy. However, that legalese, I'm like, eh,
Well,
I'm not sure. I'm just not sure what
especially
direction to go.
I there is it's an odd thing because
Hmm.
even as attorneys, the way that we draft contracts can sometimes be ambiguous. And when it goes to court,
Okay.
sometimes you can litigate over what a clause means. So, which is essentially why it is so important to get your contracts done correctly up front. So, there is certainty in what that document creates, the rights and responsibilities for you as a business owner should things go wrong.
Okay. And is there some kind of like templates and things like that? I mean, you can see templates all over the place, and I think you probably see this a lot. Those templates on Google may not be the best choice.
No, so this is something that I constantly preach, especially to our new entrepreneurs who
Yeah.
were helping set up their businesses. Please, 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 please do not use contracts that you pull off the internet. There are the problem with the contracts, the primary issue with these contracts on the internet is that they're not detailed enough and that they're not formatted to your specific circumstances. So they may not meet the needs that your business has at that time, or it may put extra responsibilities on your business that you didn't mean to originally put on your business. So just when you pull contracts off the internet, the issue that we are seeing with clients is that they don't actually know what is in it, and then unfortunately their business is punished for it later on down the road if they are sued.
And that's scary. That
It
is
is.
very scary. And it's
Well,
the unknown that gets us.
right, and that's the problem. The benefit of having an attorney draft contracts for you is that certainty. Is we know what is in that document. We know what we're putting in those documents is the best practice at that time. And these provisions are the best possible provisions to try to keep you in the most beneficial spot should something happen. And so ultimately when we're drafting contracts, that's what we're considering is if this contract comes into issue for our business owner, where does that leave them? Is this leaving them
Ah.
in a beneficial spot where they have the upper hand in a potential dispute? Or are we putting them at risk for financial distress, public opinion distress, all of these other various repercussions?
And that's a challenge. And I know the other challenge I hear, even within the bookkeeping inside, is like folks don't know there's only so much money to work around with. And it's that prioritizing that absolutely is important. And I want to encourage folks that this particular topic is very, very important. This is as important as money as well as because all of this intertwines. It
Right,
all intertwines together, and we want to protect ourselves. And depending on how your business is structured, depending on this is a crazy world that we have out there right now. And you want to put the best possible system, which in this case is the best possible document, in place to support your business. Because the last thing you want to do is be being challenged and have nothing to even work with.
right.
And I think that happens a lot. But is it it's cost prohibitive? Sometimes that's fair. So how do you answer that? Because I know that's probably you got to get that question as much as I do.
We do.
And
In our firm, the way we work, and this is what makes us a little different than typical
mhm,
business firms, is we have a small firm here. It is just myself and Brad Hill, who is the lead attorney and founder of our firm, and our paralegal, Elisa. So the three of us work together as a team. Now, what makes that different is from the larger firms,
mhm,
or makes us different from them, is that we're able to lower our costs and work with our business owners. We understand
huge.
you're first setting up your business, you have a set budget. There is
Mhm,
only so much money that you can spend on getting everything pulled together and set up prior to actually starting business. So
true.
we work with our clients, we hear their concerns, we offer payment plans. So that is not
Okay.
one of that is one way that we help our clients prioritize legal help.
And that was huge. And I know we had connected on that before. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Is it's really tough sometimes. And it's like, what do I do? You got all this, and you see all these things that have to be done. And I kind of look at this side as being the same as the financials. You've got to have a strong foundation in place. And
Absolutely.
part of that foundation is your money management. Part of that is your business side of it. And it's the systems that are in place to support everything that you're doing. And as
Absolutely.
you said, work with somebody who is going to do that. And I did love the small, the small town feel, I guess you want to call it. But sometimes when you get in those larger ones, you don't even know what questions to ask. Whereas that's where I found you guys, and it's just so nice because we've connected, and you've helped me figure out what questions do I need to ask even before we get anywhere else. And I think
Right.
that's the biggest challenge is I don't know what I don't know, nor do I know what I'm supposed to ask. Do I have an idea? And that's got to be very common for most business owners that are just starting out.
It is, and like I said, just to reiterate from what I said before, that's not your job. It is not
Hmm.
your job to know what legal documents need to go into place to protect your business, your ideas, your products, your services. That's what we do, and that's why you come to us, so we can become a part of your team and help best set your business up for success.
And what are some of the things that the business owner needs to connect? We got to have contracts for the services. What
Yes,
else should they be considering? I mean, that seems second nature, but I'm guessing there's a few other bits and pieces that are involved. Could you share a little bit about that?
absolutely. So I view this as two subsets. So you
Hmm.
have when a business is first starting up, and you have contracts and agreements that may come into play when they're already in business. So, looking at the startup subset of things, this is going to be your articles of organization or incorporation,
Hmm.
your bylaws, or your just various governing documents. Now, one thing that we're seeing trend wise is a lot of entrepreneurs, in order to try to save on costs, are going to start up document generators like LegalZoom. Now,
Ah,
here's the main problem with this. It is something that both myself and the lead attorney here at our firm have experienced. So, when you go through things like LegalZoom or any startup document generator, they're going to ask you several questions on, what are the services your business is offering, how many employees you expect, just very basic questions. But the questions they're not going to ask you are, what are the goals of your business? What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? And for example, like we discussed earlier, is this a business that you want to sell, or is this something you want to pass on to your children? When we get the information to the answers to these questions, we're taking this information and we're building you custom documents to try to best implement your goals and what you
okay.
anticipate for the business. And so, like I said, the problem with these document generators or is that they're spitting out these it's just very much basic forms. They're not exactly covering the needs of your business. And we have unfortunately seen where these document generators are setting up the incorrect entity type.
Oh,
So
wow.
one thing that business owners don't typically consider when they're starting their business is, what's the best entity structure for my business? A lot of
Sure.
people think it's the limited liability company structure because that is the most common. But it is a tactical decision and one that should be made with an attorney. And like I said, these document generators are just spitting out um, these these entities and these documents based on very limited information. And so you come up with issues of these documents aren't sufficient and they've set up the incorrect entity. So just things to be aware of on the startup side of things.
Okay.
Now on the contracts and agreements that you will
Hmm.
need pertaining to when you're already in business, you're growing your business, or even you're going to sell your business. These documents can also be found online. And this goes back to what we discussed earlier.
Hmm.
The contracts and agreements may sign your business up for more responsibility than you originally had wanted to incur, as well as may create additional liability that you had not planned for. So, if for some reason you're sued or something goes wrong in the transaction, you find yourself with this contract that was supposed to be on your side. It was supposed to be favorable to your business, and it's just not.
Oh,
So, ultimately just making sure that you're using contracts that have been either reviewed by an attorney or drafted by an attorney are is going to be beneficial to the success of your business.
and I think that is so crucial. Absolutely crucial. And it is a very common mistake, and that I'm seeing a
Yeah,
lot of folks who's like, "Oh, I just went out on the internet and did this," and I'm like, I don't even want to try to do that
well,
because I don't know what I may answer it one way because I didn't understand something. I may answer it because, as you pointed out here, I didn't think about what is my 5 or 10 years, because often when you're in the midst of that, you're not thinking that far in advance.
right. Well, and
So,
like I said, I mean, these are common mistakes, and the main reason people do them is to save on costs. But
hmm,
you work with a law firm such as our firm, we're going to work with you on that. We want to make sure you're in a good spot with your business and you are preventing any sort of negative repercussions of using a contract off the internet. So we can work with you on payment plans, adjusting costs, whatever that may look like, to make sure that you are in the best spot for your business.
and that's so important because it's peace of mind too. It's one thing that's checked out. It's part of running your business. And
It
I
is.
think folks, it's just as much as money management, the business side, like business has different pieces that unfortunately are part of that foundation. And there's different little spokes or wheels or however you want to look at it. But
Right.
it's not, in order to build that foundation, I always like to use a house. If you're building it, it's four walls
Right.
together in order to build that up. And pieces of those are the various options. And this is definitely one of them. I mean, making sure you have yourself protected legally is huge. And just setting that all up. And as you said, the entity governs a lot of different things. Is this the right entity? Is this the right direction? Does this make sense? What are the additional costs? You know, because some
Right.
folks don't realize that the LLC is a yearly cost that's involved. And if
Right.
you're not preparing for that, and all of a sudden you don't have your LLC, but there's also things on the financial side when you intermingle funds that can create you a ton of grief as
Absolutely.
well. That really creates a ton of grief.
Absolutely. That is that's actually one of the things. So what we like to do with, and this goes back to specifically new entrepreneurs who have not
Hmm.
owned a business before, is we advise you on the legal side of things, but we're going to sit down with you and talk practical. So, for example, you're talking about commingling funds.
Yep,
Keep a separate bank account for your business and
absolutely.
do not mix in your personal finances.
Nope.
And just things like this that typically you're not thinking of
Mm-mm.
when you're starting out. So that's why, as you said, it's so important to get professionals involved in the very beginning of setting up your business.
And set it up on the right side. Exactly. And then you are building that foundation. You can't withstand the storms if your foundation isn't solid. And that's
Absolutely.
something I'm preaching. And that's just how I feel in the finances. That's one of those walls. One of the walls is your finances. One of your walls is your legal side.
Right.
You
Well,
know.
we're not even talking about withstanding storms. Of course, you want to, if something arises, a problem
Mhm.
arises, or a dispute happens, you want to have the documents in place to protect your
Absolutely.
business. But ultimately, if you don't have a solid foundation for your business, and when you go to sell your business,
It's not
the
going to go.
it's not, and it's going to ultimately impact how much you can sell your business for. And so that is something to consider, even in the beginning. The laying this initial foundation is so
Mhm.
important to all of your future plans and the ultimate success of your business.
Absolutely. And so well said. I mean, just we just want to get people thinking because there's so much possibility in front of you, but in order to get to those possibilities, you've got to make sure that foundation is there and it's
Right.
working forward and it's going from there. And you do with all different, so is there specific industries that you work with, or is there a group of industries, or it really doesn't matter? Is there focuses that you guys usually? I know it's across North Carolina, that much I know.
Yes. So we are industry agnostic, and we work with
Okay.
businesses in a variety of phases of growth. So
Okay.
Brad Hill, the lead attorney at our firm, he particularly works with life science startup companies, and that is one of his not necessarily specialties, but something he works with very frequently. And
Ah.
my bread and butter is helping new businesses get started. I thoroughly enjoy when I get that call from an entrepreneur who they say, I've got this idea, I've got this concept, and I know it's going to be great, and I know I can make this work, but how do I
Hmm.
do it? So that those are the type of calls and the types of clients that I really enjoy working with, is just making sure we're getting them set up correctly to where they can bring their dreams into a reality.
And that's so important. I mean, that's why we started. Most people, that's why we start a business is to put further what our dreams are, have that freedom. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's kind of laughing. I know, I'm dealing with a lot of different things, but I had the freedom to control my schedule.
Right.
And that was huge to me because that's what was important for me to be able. So there was days I, had to take the afternoon off because I was taking care of dad or I was taking care of something else. But then I worked into the evening, and that was part of the whole purpose of creating this business is to give me some flexibility. And I think that's kind of what you're saying too, is you're creating this flexibility in their businesses so that they are set up properly. They are
Right.
set up right from the beginning, and that is your focus. And I think it's just so important because I know it's one of those areas that gets so confused. And too many people, I'm hearing just what you're saying. Oh, I just went out and did LegalZoom or whatever from the internet. And I'm like, I struggle a little bit with just going to the internet and downloading a form because I mean, I started there too. I'll admit it. I tend to be pretty transparent at first, and I'm like trying to find. I'm like, what? But do I have everything I need? And honestly, I did not.
It's not something I don't understand. I get it. When
Mm-hmm.
you are first starting your business, as I mentioned earlier, typically you're on a very limited budget. You're still trying to meet your living expenses, but you're also trying to figure out how to start up this new business. And so I understand having limited resources to make this vision happen. But legal services is one of those things that
Necessary.
you should not cheat out of the system. This
No,
is not something that you should just kind of wing, I guess you could say.
no,
So
not at all.
no, and it ultimately, unfortunately, it is something that we see where there's these great businesses and they've got this awesome product or awesome service
Mm-hmm.
and they're thriving, but they've used this contract that they found online and they go to get sued and they can lose everything because of one provision in a clause in
And
a
that's
contract.
scary that
It
you've
is.
worked so hard. So this is really protecting your profits too.
Well, it
I
is.
think this truly is a profit protection plan, just like insurance. You are taking out pretty much insuring your profits.
Absolutely. That is a perfect way to look at it. It is devastating especially when you see people who have built a business up. This has been
Mm-hmm.
a lifelong dream of theirs, and then it all comes crashing down because you didn't have the proper documents in place. So just doing the preventative work, making sure everything is set up correctly when you first get started is the best way to make sure you're ensuring the success of your business.
And that's wonderful. And that's what we want to do. That's absolutely what we want to do. And I know in your spare time, I'd love you to share a little bit about, I know you have a special passion that you do help out and that involves children. So why don't you share a little bit about that as well?
I do. So it actually, my passion for this started because my middle sister, Chelsea Reedy, now Chelsea Proctor, she and her husband do foster care. So they've had
Ah,
a couple foster care placements. And I have just, over the last year since they've been doing this, have developed this passion for helping children that are in our foster care system. So one of the ways that I felt like I could use my legal talents for that was to represent the best interest of children when the termination of parental rights goes up on appeal. So the way that I do that is I submit written briefs through the Guardian Ad Litem program.
okay. And that's so important. I mean, kids really have no idea, especially when they're in that type of a situation. And sadly, I got a feeling it's more often than not
It
that it's
is,
more common than I should say not often not. It's more common than most of us realize, at least me personally. I've been very blessed, but
it is.
I think a challenge out there.
Absolutely. And, it was something prior to Chelsea and Hobie getting involved in the foster care system. I myself didn't understand and know the numbers
Sure.
and know how overrun our foster care system is right now and just
Wow.
all of the children that are in need in North Carolina. So it is something that is a passion project of mine. And ultimately, my whole family has somewhat got involved in
That's
just some
awesome.
sort of element of foster care. For example, my mom, her and my dad have transformed their backyard at their home into this. It's almost it's similar to like a daycare. They've put a playground up, a climbing gym. They've put up a mud kitchen, and they just welcome people into their homes, whether that be biological parents where my sister's foster placements went back to. We
Hmm.
keep a good relationship with them. So it is a really incredible thing to be a part of.
That's amazing. And I think that's the biggest thing is when you have support, you can succeed. But you've got to
Absolutely.
have that support. I mean, I can't even imagine, as I said, I've been very, very blessed in my life. I can't even imagine just not even know where to turn. Talk about spiraling out of control and their kids. They should, this is not something they're needing to be dealing with. And
Absolutely.
yet they do. They have to. And to have an advocate for them. And just like you're advocating for the kids, you're advocating for the small business owner and
Right.
making sure that they're, and I think, as I said, that we've connected. And I think that's where a lot of it is because we want them to succeed. So how
Absolutely.
can we help and strengthen using our strengths and talents that we've been gifted with to help others to succeed as well? So, any other mistakes that you see small business owners making? Is there anything else that you can see besides grabbing, from them not aligning themselves properly? Is there anything else you'd like to share?
There is one that comes to the forefront of my
Hmm.
mind, and this might be something for a whole nother session that we can do. But One issue that we're seeing, especially right now,
Uh-huh.
pertains to the employee versus independent contractor classification.
Ah,
So, a lot of small businesses, when they're expanding their workforce, aren't sure how to classify an individual that's working in and amongst their business. And so there are so many repercussions if you don't get this classification right. So that is something else that you could potentially discuss with an attorney.
that is huge. And just briefly, I mean, 1099, if you think about it, so the independent contractors are 1099 quote, and I'm using employees very, very loosely on that one, but they're a 1099, which means taxes, and it affects their taxes big time, whether or not the company is required to pay taxes, which is why there's so many rules and regulations on that. And
Well,
you're absolutely right.
even beyond the taxes, we're looking at employment laws. So
Hmm.
all of these state and federal employment laws that create the responsibilities that you owe as a business owner to your employees, those don't apply to independent contractors. So, making sure you're classifying them correctly is imperative to keeping you out of financial trouble, as well as keeping you out of issues with public opinion should that misclassification come to light.
And that might be a really good topic to kind of say, what is the difference between, and as you're contracting out, at what point does it pivot? What point? Because I think most small business owners start out with an independent because they don't need a full time, they don't even need a standard part time person.
Right,
They almost need like a project based person. And
right.
for the most part, saying this loosely, if it's a project, 9 times out of 10, an independent contractor can fulfill that role. If
It
it's that, but
all
it's all,
So I
yeah.
like there is the it is this classification issue is heavily governed by common law. So common law is
Okay.
based on court decisions. And so what we've seen in North Carolina is they look at a variety of factors when
Ah.
classification issue comes into litigation. So they look at, is this person someone that can schedule their own hours, or are you sending them a schedule of when they should show up to work? Is this someone who's allowed to hire their own assistants and control them, or are you as the business owner hiring them assistants and controlling those assistants?
So
It,
maybe that's a good question to do. Maybe we do what's the top 10 questions to identify which way you're going or
I,
something of that nature.
look, I would love to join you again. I
Yeah.
really enjoy our talks, and I think that we both share a passion on helping business
Mhm.
owners. So that is something I'd be more than happy to chat about.
That would be a lot of fun just to see and just to kind of say, okay, here's things to be thinking about. And that is so crucial because I have a background a little bit in HR and payroll, so it kind of helps a little bit on that side of it. So I have a little bit of a leg up, but even still, sometimes there's some gray area.
Oh, that's why we have
And
litigation. That's why things go to court, is those gray areas. If everything was black and white, we wouldn't have
yeah.
litigation in general. So
You wouldn't have a job.
I would be out of a job. So there are the gray areas.
But that would be kind of cool. So we'll have to schedule that, and we're going to encourage folks. But it was a great way for you to kind of explain to get people thinking,
Absolutely.
get them thinking. And I know today we were dedicated it on the contracts and just really thinking, how can you tie that down? Whether you're in the startup phase, and that's where you get your articles and all that other fun stuff that goes, or that big binder, and maybe even I'm thinking there's yearly requirements. Is that something? Well, we have a few minutes. Is there yearly requirements for an LLC? Because I think, as you mentioned, that's the most common. So what do the LLCs need to be thinking ongoing? Besides, I got to pay my renewal fee and go out and put my little, what is that called? There's a form you got to fill out.
Annual report. So
Thank you.
yes, there are requirements as you continue in business, and that's the annual report that you file with the Secretary of State. That's just a document giving some updates on your business. It's relatively easy to fill out, but I believe those are due by April 15th of every year
Hmm.
for LLCs. And then on top of that, there is such thing as a registered agent that you need to set up an LLC. And most of
Oh,
the time, small business owners serve as their own registered agent, but you can hire third party service providers as your registered agent. So if you do hire someone to do it, you need to make sure that you're renewing that every year and paying those fees on time.
that one I wasn't as familiar with. So apparently, I hope I'm on my own registered agent.
Well, and you can check this as easy as going to the North Carolina Secretary of State website and pulling up that initial filing you did.
Mhm.
Should be found when you actually search your business, and it should say on there whether you serve as your own registered agent or not.
And that's good to know. And
Yeah.
folks don't realize that. Is there anything else you can think of? That is there any kind of documentation? Is there minutes or things that you're supposed to be having a yearly meeting with yourself?
So all of that is governed based on the operating agreement for your LLC. So that
Aha.
would be on an individual basis of what your operating dictates you have the requirements you have to meet for annual meetings. And then also for corporations, it's going to be in your bylaws on when you need to be meeting, when your shareholders need to be meeting, etc.
And I think a lot of times there's some confusion too with S corps. That's another area where it's an LLC, but you're an S corp, and so we could dive into a whole other ball game on that one.
Oh, I would love to talk about that. That is something, the lead attorney at my firm, and I actually had a conversation about this the other day. Making S elections appears to be increasing in popularity. So that
Mhm.
is something I would love to have another chat on the advantages, the disadvantages, whether it's a good decision for your business, and just kind of walk business owners through that.
That would be, I mean, I do think, yeah, I think we have a couple of topics. We're going to have to make a series out of it
I would love
as
to.
we build our foundation because we really want folks to, we want to inspire and ignite these possibilities. There's so many possibilities out there. Which ones do you ignite? Well, we want you guys to ignite the ones that are going to put that foundation in place for you. Whether it's because of your finances and getting those systems, whether it's your legal and getting those systems and documents in place to protect yourself and to provide a solid business that should the time come, if you're going to leave it to your children or you're going to end up selling it off, that you are handing them a very solid company with
Yeah.
the right systems in place for success and continuing forward. So this has been great, and I'm looking forward to it. Now we're gonna have to go get our calendars scouted,
No, we're
see
gonna have
what we can do, because I
to
think this would be a
monthly
perfect.
sessions to discuss all these topics. But thank
Yes,
you so
because
much
we
for
go on for a couple more hours, and then we wouldn't get any work done.
I mean, look, the last time we chatted, I
We did.
well beyond our allotted time, and I
We
love it.
did. Me
I
too.
always enjoy speaking with you. So thank you
Me
for having me
too.
on today.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited. And I know a lot of folks catch this on the replay, and that's perfectly fine. We want to encourage you. I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat Lindsey's contact information. And I do encourage you, take advantage of at least having a conversation. Reach out and say, hey, whatever point you're in, if you're just starting out, hey, where do I get started? Let Lindsey guide you. Let it and start there, and then see how you can partner going forward. I know I'm definitely going to be having some additional conversations to make sure, do I have the right contracts in place at this point in the game? Am I going in the right direction? You know, what makes sense? Because after two, and I'm on my third year now, what's changed for me? Is it time to start circling back and saying, okay, what's the next direction? It may or may not be. I don't know, but it's a great opportunity to have. So no matter where you're at in business, take the opportunity. Her information is in the chat. By all means, she is wonderful to work with. We have connected, and I'm looking forward to some additional. We're going to have to just make this a legal series here.
I would love that. I would
That
love.
we could do that. In a couple of weeks, we're going to bring something back in, and we'll pick. I don't know. We might have to do a poll. We should get people to say, okay, which one would you prefer? What are the topics on the legal side that would be useful for you? And then we can design these, because that's what the whole purpose of this It's Time to Excel is. How can we help you to excel? So Lindsey, thank you so much for taking time out, joining us today, and having just a chance to share and get folks on the right track. Is there anything else you'd like to close with?
Not at this time. No, I like she said, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always more than happy to have a conversation. Helping small business owners is my passion. So any questions you have, or if you just want to chat, I would love to talk with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much. And I look forward to our next entertainment, as we call it, on the legal side, where we can help them to excel in maybe a different slight area of legal issues that we all have to deal with as small business owners. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, whether you caught us live, because I saw some people popping in and out, so we do appreciate you coming in, as far as those also that go on the replay. Put your comments in there. Help us to know how we can help to inspire and ignite additional possibilities for you, because it is your time to excel, and we would invite you to excel with us. Have a good time, everyone.